Well, good evening. Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, CEO of C-Suite Women's Network. And woo, I have been making some CEO moves today. We had some technical difficulties. So we have been trying for the last 20 minutes to get the show up and going, and had to just start all over again. But that's what CEOs do. We make things happen. So I know that I am 15 minutes behind schedule. So we are going to get back on track, get started, because we've got some great conversations to have. So I thank you for joining me on C-Suite Conversations from the C-Suite, the girlfriend's guide to being a CEO. I am Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and it is my pleasure to have you here in the C-Suite. At C-Suite Women's Network, we help women and a few good men to be the CEOs of their lives, to develop strategies to achieve the results they desire in their business, careers, and lives. And every woman needs to have a seat at the table, because when she can create a seat at the table, she can create a seat for others. Conversations from the C-Suite is a power-packed hour that provides women a platform to discuss the issues that real women face, because we know that life doesn't end when we leave the office. So I invite you to pull up your favorite beverage. And y'all, I got my wine tonight, and I truly do need it. I might need another glass, but we are here and we are going to have great conversations. Now, you know that the C-Suite is in any company where all of the chiefs are. The CEO, the CFO, the COO, and all of those chiefs. But really, the C-Suite is where the decisions are made, which is why each of you has a C-Suite of your life, because the C-Suite is where you make the decisions to create the life you desire and deserve. Now, as the CEO, you are the one who comes up with the idea, decides on the direction, develops the strategy, and builds a great team to execute the goal. And we're really going to be talking about that in tonight's episode, how important it is to have a team. But it is important to recognize where you are on your CEO journey. Are you a CEO on the rise? That means you are just getting started and you need some direction on your ascent to the C-Suite. You may be a CEO on the move. You've done this a little bit, but you are getting your feet wet and you want to make it even higher. And then finally, you may be a CEO. But here's one thing I want you to remember. CEOs always can take it to the next level. So regardless of where you are, if you're on the rise, you're on the move, or you have made it to the C-Suite, it is always time for you to make CEO moves, because here in the C-Suite, we want you to feel something, learn something, but most of all, you got to do something, because CEOs don't just sit around waiting on things to happen. They make things happen. So that's why we're focusing on making our CEO moves. You've got to create circles of influence. You've got to educate and empower yourself so that you can elevate to the next level. And then you've got to operationalize what you learn so that you can optimize your outcome. Because this is not the library. This is the C-Suite, where we're going to have conversations that help you to make those CEO moves. So whether you report to a CEO or you are the CEO of your own business, you are always the CEO of your life. So I welcome you into the C-Suite. Are you ready? Are you ready to enter the C-Suite of your life? And are you ready to have a powerful conversation in this C-Suite tonight? Well, I tell you, y'all, we were motivated and determined to make sure that we had tonight's conversation. I tell you, it was like the stars were trying to line up against us, but we were like, we got to talk about Mama and them. So I want to ask the question of you is, are Mama and them, is taking care of Mama and them about to take you out? Because, as we become like the sandwich generation, where we've got maybe kids at home, and then we've got to be concerned about taking care of our parents, it can get to be a little hectic. So we don't want to think about it, but it is something that we must think about. And we don't want to find ourselves in a pickle because we're in a sandwich generation and we don't have a plan. We don't have a strategy. We don't have a team, and we can't get to our C-suite, or if we in our C-suite, we get kicked out and get kicked back down to the mailroom because we don't have all of our ducks in the row. So, whether you have to take care of your parents, you may have to take care of other loved ones, you may have to take care of your spouse, and honey child, you might have to get somebody to take care of you. But we want to make sure that you're not just kicking the can down the road, but you are truly making those CEO moves. You're getting over your feelings. You are learning what you need to do and making those moves to be able to take care of your loved ones so that they don't take out all of your finances. So I am excited. I'm excited about my guest for this evening. And we've known each other virtually for, I guess, a little bit over a year. We finally got a chance to meet each other physically in July. July of this year. So it was such a pleasure to finally put a real face with the picture and social media connection that we've had over the years. So I just want to tell you about who I'm about to bring to the virtual stage. I've got none other than Terry V. White. She is a gerontologist who provides a comprehensive and inclusive approach to assessing and providing direct care management services to aging adults. She's sensitive to the issues facing aging adults and their changing needs. During her years of working for a New York City municipality, Terry became a caregiver for several family members herself. And while navigating this process, she became a sought-after advocate by worrying seniors and stressed families for consultation. And they inspired her to become a geriatric care manager to assist families with the challenges of aging and caregiving. And in 2010, she founded a labor of love elder care. After developing her age method, which we're going to learn about tonight, I can't wait to learn what this age method is. It's trademarked. It's so fancy and special. She has consistently provided services to many faith-based communities, entrepreneurs, celebrities, and entertainers. So she take care of all of them. All right. So it is my pleasure to bring to the virtual stage none other than Terry V. White. Hey, girl.
Hey, Dr. Stephanie.
Oh,
how are you this evening?
Were we committed to get you on here tonight? Y'all have no idea. Y'all have no idea what we have gone through, but like Celia said in Color Purple, eyes here, Lord, eyes here.
I see it.
All right. Well, this again, welcome to the C-suite. It is so great to finally have this conversation. It has literally been in the planning since June. Was it July?
June.
Yeah, June. That's right. Yeah,
June.
Yeah, it was June. So this conversation has been in the making since June. That's when we physically met. We've met each other virtually through social media before then, but we had a chance to connect at the Beacon conference in New Jersey, and immediately had a connection. And I was like, I've got to have you on my show. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show then. And thank you so much for persevering, because y'all, I'm telling you, I need some care myself. So while she tells us, she's going to tell us her CEO move. So I've shared about who you are. I've given them your bio, but tell us, who is the real Terry V. White? So tell us who you are, what you do, and why do you make CEO moves? And I'm going to have me a drink of wine because, all right.
Well, you sip your wine and enjoy your red wine, Dr. Stephanie.
That's exercise, by the way. It's studies that say
it's an upper body workout.
No, it's some studies. It's actual studies that say that drinking red wine before going to bed is like doing an hour of cardio. So
that part is true. And when you have to lift the glass, it is an upper body movement. So I'm with you.
Yes.
With that. So, greetings, everyone. I am Terry B. White. As she said, I am the founder of a labor of love elder care. And as we all know, taking care of someone is just that. It is a labor of love. It's just like having a baby. You know, you go through all of the different stages of growth and development and changes. And just before there's all this agita and pain and levels of contraction and detraction, and people want to pull you in all these different directions and all these different things happen, and you don't even know what's happening. There's joy, there's sorrow, there is why am I doing this? There's all these things that happen when you're in this process of labor. And then this baby comes out.
Yeah.
This beautiful bundle of joy. But all of that happens because you were prepared for the birth.
Yeah.
So that is why I do what I do, and that is to prepare you for the birth. So I prepare busy professionals who are also caregivers for their loved ones, prepare and just get ready. I just want you to be ready for this possible journey of caregiving.
Right.
And the astronomical costs that will take you out of here.
Right. And, and I think the key word, you've said it repeatedly, and I don't think by accident, but it's all about preparation, because, with a baby, when you're literally giving birth, to a baby, it's more condensed, you got 9 months, because even if the baby is a surprise, you still have at least 9 months, to prepare for it. And so over that period of time, you're able to do everything. But, even though all of us know that our parents are going to age, we know that, even though it's hard to think about it, but all of us know our parents are going to age. We know that we're going to age. We know our loved ones are going to age. I think because the time period, is so long. And I think there is a bit of, I won't say disillusion, but definitely a disconnection from reality around the fact that mama or dad or grandma, big mama and them, that somebody at that is going to get to that stage where instead of them taking care of you, that you have to take care of them. So, you mentioned you started this out because you had to take care of several loved ones yourself. For the viewer out there who's, kind of thinking about this, or may even find themselves just really on the brink of having to, do something more than just kind of look after their parents from time to time, or they really have reached that point where they need help. How do you get started? Where do you get started? What's kind of the first things that you need to do to prepare to take care of mom and them?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I want to say oftentimes we don't know that we're in the process.
Yeah.
So I was born to older parents. When I was born back in the day,
just a couple years ago. Yes.
My mother was 39. And at that time, it wasn't fashionable to have a baby at that age. So I was born to older parents.
Yes.
So from a young age, I really was a caregiver to my grandparents who lived nearby, which is where I went after school and where I spent a lot of my time and where I lived for a period of time. And my grandparents were, well, for me, they weren't old. They were just older.
Yeah.
But my parents, as I became a school-age girl, were basically the age of just a little bit younger than my peers' grandparents. So I realized a few years ago that I have really been taking care of people for a very long time.
Yes.
I was a child caregiver.
Yes. So
dispensing meds and those sorts of, small tasks.
Right. So as you transition to kind of, more than just the what had become very natural for you in your day-to-day activities, for someone who is now, faced with the decision, okay, mom can't take care of herself anymore. I've got to work full time. I've got to take care of my own kids, but I've got to take care of my mom or dad or whatever the case may be. For that person who is just hasn't really thought about it, it's not something that's natural. How do they get started? Where do they start? And, what's the first thing you need to do?
The first thing we need to do is have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to having the conversation, we have to acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
that we're a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said previously, we really don't know that we're a caregiver
Mm-hmm.
because we're accustomed to, hey, mom, how you doing?
Yeah.
Did you go to the doctor today? What did the doctor say?
Yeah.
Did you take your medication?
Yeah.
You did? Okay, talk to you later.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They tell you everything is fine, everything is this. So we do this check-in process
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just to see how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's a smooth transition, it's a long transition. And other times it's just all of a sudden we have gone from checking in
Mm-hmm.
to driving to get groceries
Mm-hmm.
to she's not answering the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Now I need to call the neighbor,
Right.
to the neighbor calling you, to the landlord calling and saying that there was 2 incidences where the stove was on.
Mm-hmm.
And we really have to say, okay, we need to have a conversation about what's going on.
Yes. So.
And sometimes they're in denial about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're in denial about the information that we're receiving about what's happening.
Right. So you have the conversation, and we'll think about, for the purpose of this, you've got at least one sibling that you've got to have this conversation with, as opposed to it being just you, where you're the sole decision maker. Because most of us, or most situations, you've got some family dynamics where there's more than one person at least who's going to be involved in the decision. So what does that conversation look like? I mean, what are some things that you need to talk about? Is it a conversation that's, I'm just going to say, for the example of this, that the siblings have by themselves first and then they talk to mom or dad? Or is it a family conversation? What have you found has been, the ideal situation, if you will, for having this conversation that gets the movement going to actually be able to take care of whoever needs taken care of?
Well, that's a great question. I believe that the ideal setting is to have a conversation with your sibling.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, sis, have you noticed a difference in mom lately? When the last time you talked to her?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when I talked to her, everything's fine. She's good. She said she went to church. She said she's went out. She said she went here, she went there. I don't see any difference.
Mm-hmm.
They might not see eye to eye with you.
Right.
Because as we also know, parents have different conversations with different ones of their children.
Right.
Okay? So one sibling might get one set of information, another sibling might get another set of information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just want people to understand that it's not always that the person is in disagreement with you.
Mm-hmm.
The person has a different set of information.
Yeah. And, that's a great perspective to have, because, I think about my situation. I'm the oldest and the only girl of 3 children, but my youngest, my baby brother, is from my dad's second marriage. So, that adds just another set of dynamics, in that, I've got one sibling that I would have assistance with to help my mom, and 2 siblings that I have to help me with my dad. But, I always think about just the perspective. As my mom and I talk, we talk every day. Every day we're going to talk about something. And one of the funny things I always joke with her about, because she's caregiver for my grandmother. So the running joke is, what are you and grandma doing? Oh, we're going to the store. Now we from Mississippi, so we say, yeah, you going to the store. So But you know, that's something that's really very real in terms of the different relationships. Because I think, you know, my mom is probably going to tell me a lot more than she'd share with my brother. And then, like I say, for my dad, I've got, you know, just two brothers. There's different dynamics there, but it's important to come together. So, you know, in trying to get that reconciliation where, you know, just somebody has a different perspective for whatever reason, maybe it's family dynamics, maybe it's the relationship, or maybe, you know, it's just different perspectives. How do you kind of get everybody together so that you can do what you need to do for your mom or dad or whomever?
Well, first of all, understand that it's not about you. What is the end goal?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Let's begin with the end in mind, as we always say in business, right?
Right. Right.
And then work backwards. So it's the same process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is the goal that we are trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And then, even if we don't all agree, let's at least agree to have the conversation and see what comes out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure you've had some situations where, you know, you may not be able to get one or all to the table to have the conversation, but the most important thing is making sure that mom is taken care of. So if you have the caregiver, the default caregiver, if you will, who really can't get everybody on in consensus and can't get everybody around the table, you know, what have you seen in trying to help caregivers who are in that situation where they basically got to do it on their own to be able to navigate the system without running into legal issues, perhaps, or just being able to take care of of who needs to be taken care of?
So if you are the primary caregiver and you find yourself doing it all as you stated, everybody's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's fine because you're doing it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Until something happens, as you said, now we have to talk finances. Now we have to talk legal. It's different. Things change.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's a smooth road. That is what we want. We can agree on how mom or dad or whomever you're taking care of says they want it to go.
Yeah.
Even though you and your mom speak every day, mom might say, son number 2 is going to get this. And son number 1 is going to get this. And, you know, Stephanie, you know, you've been good. You know, you have your own business. You have your own this. You have your own that. They need it more than you do. That's a scenario. Sometimes they think that one of their children is better off than the rest. So they try to help the ones, as we say, come up, right?
Right.
Try to help them come up. And those create stressors amongst the siblings.
Right. Especially when you have one who's been physically taking care of mom, and then here come the other ones just kind of hopping, skipping around.
Well, that was her request. So it's not. So sometimes, yes, they come hopping and skipping around, and sometimes that is the request of the care recipient.
Right.
You know, and if that's their choice, that's their choice. But again, it creates the stresses amongst the siblings.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, things are just smooth. Everything is smooth. But as you said, when you have multiple parents and multiple branches on the tree, oftentimes that creates another level of unforeseen situations. That's why it's very important to have your documents in order.
Hello, documents. Yeah, because as an attorney, right?
I know you want to hear that.
Right, because and I think so many people underestimate the importance of just putting things in writing, because I used to see it all the time. I was general counsel for a health system, and so I can't tell you how many times we had a patient lying in the hospital bed who couldn't speak for themselves, and all the family dysfunctions now just come,
to the surface.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, the patient is kind of literally getting pulled in different directions, mm-hmm. because people can't get focused on, the patient. They're kind of dealing with their own issues, and all of it in that case could have been resolved by them having an advanced healthcare directive or living will or something like that. But, it's so important, for us to think about this from the perspective of, making it easier on whoever's going to take care of us, and having that conversation with mom to say, all right, how do you want things handled, so that if there comes a time when you can't speak for yourself, when you can't make decisions for yourself, we have written, guidance from you, that helps us to take care of you in the way that you want to be taken care of. So, how do you walk your clients through that process of getting them to document things and write it down and get it to where, it helps you and helps them, helps the siblings to take care of, help me help you type situation. How do you
help me help you?
Needs care, help themselves, so to speak.
Yes. So with Big Mama and them, it's often challenging, mm-hmm. to get things in writing. The first thing is really to educate them on what is a healthcare proxy. Yes. Let's start with education on all of it. Education is a huge part of the work that I do.
Yeah.
So let's start this. Since you mentioned healthcare proxy, let's talk about a healthcare proxy. Mm-hmm. A healthcare proxy is one of a set of documents called advanced directives, as you know. Mm-hmm. And for hospitals, that is the most important. When you walk into a hospital, they want to know who can make a decision. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's not just about filling out a form. Mm-hmm. We really need to have a complete conversation, uh-huh. around the form. Mm-hmm. So, because there's questions like, do you want a DNR? Okay, mm-hmm. So what's a DNR? A do not resuscitate. Well, what does that really mean? Yeah. What does do not resuscitate mean? Yeah. There are different reasons to resuscitate. Mm-hmm. Do we resuscitate in the case of an emergency, someone has a car accident? Are we resuscitating and someone is brain dead? Are we resuscitating? Why are we resuscitating? Mm-hmm. Are there any religious tenets that go along with resuscitation? Right. That go along with intubation, that go along with feeding tubes, that go along with IVs, blood transfusions. We need to have a complete conversation. Yeah. Just on that one document, there's a whole lot of education to go into just that one document, answering each of the questions. Right. But it is so important, like you say, to have that conversation and not just to have the document, because, the document just kind of helps the healthcare providers to kind of know what to do, but it doesn't take away the emotions, especially sure. If it's dealing with the question of, something like a do not resuscitate, which mm-hmm. if y'all don't know what that means, is if you fall out, if you stop breathing, they're not going to bring you back. You're going to be gone. You're going to go on to glory. But, but it's important to understand it, because, that's a easier decision to make on paper than it is to make. It is in the process. Correct. So it's important to have the conversation around that, so that I still don't think it's any easier, because I never will forget, many years ago, one of my dear friends lost her son.
in just this freak accident. And he was intubated, and they had to make the decision to
To
remove
pull a
life
plug,
support.
to move them.
And she was a nurse. She'd done it, she was a nurse. She was trained in this. And when the time came for her to make that decision for her own son, it was totally
devastating. Absolutely
devastating, because it wasn't just it. Even though she understood the clinical significance of it and she understood the clinical reasons for doing it, it was it was the emotional attachment to making that decision for her son. So that's why, y'all, you got to be make your CEO moves about it, and make sure that you create those circles of influence, which means the people who are going to influence decision, even if they're not going to be the ones there in the room, they need to know about it. You need to have those conversations. Don't pop up on them at the last minute with this information, whatever it is. You got to make sure that you educate yourself, which why I hope you're taking notes on some things that you need to be thinking about.
And questions that you might have.
Right. Because this is indeed a conversation. It's not just,
it's not a monologue.
Right. You've got
it is a conversation.
Right.
And also, I really want to let your viewers know that this document is not just for old people.
Mm-hmm. Right. It is for young people.
It's for everybody.
Right. It is for everybody. It is something that, we need to think about, because, because like I say, I practice law in a healthcare setting. And so, I was always asking and making sure that everybody had their advanced healthcare directives, because I saw the fallout for when they didn't. But regardless of what age you are, because I know that's something my first husband and I talked about, when we had small children, and just, what do we want for each other, so that, he, at the time, I'm not his cabinet, I won't make that decision now, but at the time, that was a very real conversation that we had to have. Do you want to be resuscitated? Because he is a critical care physician.
Okay.
So he really, knew the ins and out of what our means and what that process is about. So we would have very good conversations around that, and could be able to be informed about, if I were incapacitated, the decisions he would make, and vice versa. And so, as a married couple, you need to have that conversation, because let me just tell you something, because I'm telling you this from the legal side, or just kind of being on the hospital side. If you and your spouse have the conversation, but you don't let his mama know, you don't let her mama know, or whatever, then it's like, you trying to kill my baby.
Yes.
So, that was something that, even though it wasn't like a dinner table conversation you want to have all the time, I let my mom know at the time, this is what I want. So if he were to exercise that, he ain't trying to kill me. He might try to kill me now, but but it was important to have that conversation with her, so that she would know what my wishes were. So that's
correct.
Really important. Now,
so there were a few things you said by sharing that story. One was about the marriage, and you are no longer his care provider, or will be his care provider. So since we're talking about CEO moves, part of that is in handling your business, because marriage is a business.
Yes, it is.
It's a business partnership.
Yes.
That you have a complete exit strategy from that. Because if you are separated, Dr. Stephanie Barnes, Esquire, right? As you are separated and you are still legally married, and something was to happen to him, you are still responsible for this business arrangement.
Right.
And these are one of the things that people don't kind of realize.
Right. Because we think about, because and I think sometimes this is it's culturally driven as well. But I just speak traditionally in the African American community, because of many times we didn't have access to a lot of the long-term healthcare facilities and had limited access sometimes even to the just hospital facilities
Mm-hmm.
and nursing home facilities and things like that, we took care of our own, and it's kind of like, because at the time we didn't have a choice. Now, we have a lot of choices from just access and insurance and all that different gamut of things. And I think, a lot of times we think about this as just some family decision, but it's really a business decision that we've got to think about from a business perspective and really focus on, what is it going to take care of mom and them, which I think is a great transition into the to the financial side of things, because we're talking about, having a conversation with your siblings or whomever is involved, that circle of influence, who gonna be, just ask yourself this question: who gonna be mad in mama's hospital room? Who gonna be mad when you make the decision to put her in a nursing home, or you make the decision that you have to hire a nurse? Who's gonna be mad? All right. So you have the conversation with them. You get your documentation in order. Write it down.
Yes.
When you think about the business aspects. So particularly, we've talked about marriage. It adds an incredible dynamic. So for example, my mom and dad are divorced. So in addition to the parents, I've got to deal with my step parents and their kids. And, so it just creates this whole nother dynamics.
Correct.
And this is, for example, my mom, but she is married to my stepdad, who's technically her next of kin. So where does that leave me? Right.
Correct.
So marriage, you have to really think about those things. And whether it's your biological parent or your step parent, or in some cases, your your common law parent. Now, a lot of states now don't really recognize common law marriages. So if they've been together for years, even though they have carried themselves as husband and wife, if they don't have a piece of paper,
they don't have a business partnership.
Yeah, that long-term partner. And I have seen that, and that's kind of one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen in these situations where you have because there was a situation, I remember this couple had been married like 20 years, maybe 20 something years. They had kids together. I mean, had not been married. They'd been together 20 something years, had kids together, had lived together. He was in this fatal or this really bad motorcycle accident.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were not married, mama came in there and wouldn't let that woman. And I thought that was the most heartless thing ever. Because, they lived together, but she didn't have a legal right. And she had to go and do some other things in order to be able to do it. He didn't have a healthcare directive. So,
and if her name even if they weren't married, for the viewers, even if they weren't married, if he had a document listing her as the healthcare proxy, mama would not have been able to come in to do that.
Yeah, but because they had that conversation.
Correct. And because people are young, they don't feel as though they need to have this conversation because they're young.
Right.
That's what old people do.
Yeah.
I have time to handle that.
Yeah.
But this is not what happened. So your story made me think of a story when I did work for a New York City municipality. There were plenty of guys. I worked around a lot of men. Mm-hmm. There were plenty of guys in that similar situation. When they first came on the job and they signed their documents, they were married to person A. Mm-hmm. And they made person A the beneficiary. Oh. And they separated from person A and now live with person B for years and years and have property together and children and a life together. And they never changed person's A name as being a beneficiary of their pension, of their benefits, let's just say. Mm-hmm. And as you say, someone had a fatal car accident. Mm-hmm. Person A was first pissed because she was still the legal wife and she was responsible for the funerary arrangements.
Right.
However, since her name was still on everything, she got the pension.
Yeah.
She got
You got the money.
the bag was secured, right?
Yeah, the bag was
The person
secured.
that he had been living with and was playing house with and had this life with got nothing.
Right. And that's such an unfortunate thing, such an unfortunate thing. So, if you've not learned anything else, because, this may not be your situation, but if it's your parents' situation, if it's your aunt or uncle's situation,
Or your girlfriend's situation.
Your girlfriend's situation, it's important to have those documents in place, because again, even if they don't formalize the relationship with marriage, they can still do the healthcare directive so that at least that is taken care of. So, let's get to the important question as we kind of get to the end of the hour here is, how are we going to pay for all this? All right, we have this document. We've had the conversation. Everybody's on the same page. But how do we plan for actually paying for it so that, like I say, taking care of mom and them doesn't take out our finances?
So we don't become medically bankrupt?
Right.
So we don't spend up all of the money in our own 401k, 403b?
Yes.
So we don't have to so mom and them don't have to take out a quote unquote reverse mortgage on their house?
Right.
And lose the property because you can't, all that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. All that.
So it depends. Well, are you saying that you didn't plan for this as part of your retirement?
I wasn't thinking about it.
and neither are most of your financial planners who are advising you. People are being advised on, this is how much money you need to retire. Rarely is there a question to say, this is how much money you need if you ever become incapacitated. It's a very different question. Very different question. And if any financial advisors are actually listening, I would just offer that is something that we ask our clients, because it's a very different level of savings. Because that retirement that you save could wipe you out in less than 5 years.
Right.
And you will become destitute and medically bankrupt. So we can become medically bankrupt for caregiving, as we heard during the arguments during the Affordable Care Act, as people became medically bankrupt for paying for medications for cancer treatments and various different illnesses. The same thing happens with caregiving, and it happens quicker. So how do we prepare also depends on where you live, which state you live in, because each state has a different set of laws. So for some people, it's a matter of having long-term care insurance. As everything, the current long-term care policies are very different than the older long-term care policies.
Right.
It is not something that you purchase at 65.
Yeah.
It's something that you could purchase at 35.
Right.
So if you're 35, 45, it might be something that you want to consider by talking to your financial advisor and absolutely reading what the terms and conditions of the policy is, because they have limits.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a whole term life insurance policy? Do you have whole life where you could take a cash advance possibly? Do you have life insurance?
Yeah.
So we're talking about not just the care part, but the burial part.
Yeah, because for a lot of people, GoFundMe has become their burial.
So my famous line is, a GoFundMe is not an insurance policy.
Right.
Just in case you thought it was, it is not an insurance policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are burial funds.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean burial insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can actually go to a funeral home and prepay a funeral.
Right. Right.
In any state. That is something that you can do.
Yeah.
So there are many different ways for you to financially prepare. There is becoming Medicaid eligible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you'd have to kind of contact me to find out what that means
Yeah.
to become Medicaid eligible. Because, right, that is a whole conversation within itself.
Right.
As to how to do that, to be prepared. So, because the truth is, we cannot afford to age without being healthy.
Right.
So the main thing is, you want to save your finances? Take care of your health.
Right. Right.
Now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now take care of your health.
Right.
Because when you take care of your physical health and your emotional health and your spiritual health, you are really taking care of your financial health.
Right. Right.
In the long run.
Because that's something that, a lot of people don't truly think about, how important taking care of your health is in your youth, important for the expenses that you'll have as your age, or as your health declines, when you get older, because depending on your starting point, if your health is like way down here, well, it's not going to take long before that decline is at a debilitating point or something that's going to be exorbitant to take care of. So, as we're taking care of our parents, because it's a conversation I have with my parents all the time, just about literally taking care of themselves now, because the thing that I tell them is, if you got to take care of yourself, because, I'm very skilled at being a coach, at being an attorney. I'm not skilled at being a nurse. That is not my calling. I was in healthcare, but that I'm not who you want at the bedside. All right.
Right. You was an administrator. You're not the one that's actually providing the hands-on care.
That's not me. But but that's something that we have to have the conversation around. And you kind of touched on this, and I know when we were preparing for this conversation tonight, we talked about the importance of socialization, especially for the elderly in their health, and maintaining their mental health, maintaining their physical health, and how important it is to consider as we are having that conversation around, where are we going to take mom when she can't take care of herself? How are we going to take care of her? Just really thinking about even the physical surroundings, and how that influences their socialization, their mobility, their independence to the whatever extent they do have, and how that impacts their health.
Yes. Sometimes, like, I'm in New York City. New York City has tall buildings. The older buildings, if they're 5 floors or less, are walk-ups. They do not have an elevator.
Yeah.
So if you've been living on the 5th floor for 30 years,
yeah,
and you were 30 when you moved there, you're now 60.
Yeah.
Carrying groceries up the stairs. What happens most times is you become hospitalized. And when your mobility declines, you cannot get back up to the 5th floor.
Right.
So there is no other option for you to get, or very few options, I should say, for you to get up to the 5th floor. So if you can get up there, then you can't come down and socialize. So then that creates a level of isolation for people.
Right.
Because finding an apartment is not the easiest thing in New York City, an affordable apartment. for someone who is on a limited income
Right.
or a fixed income, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that easy.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we have to make the decision of moving that person because, that sometimes creates, it's a displacement.
Right.
And oftentimes it leads to homelessness
Mm-hmm.
because you can't live in a hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that means now you have to say, as you said, are we going into a skilled nursing facility? We might not need that level of care.
Mm-hmm.
Can we find a space in an independent living and assisted living? So now we have to pay those costs because those costs are higher than an apartment. Or are they coming to live with one of the siblings?
Mm-hmm.
But as we talked about, Dr. Stephanie, oftentimes if they have their mobility
Mm-hmm.
and you are just afraid of them living alone,
Mm-hmm.
but they're fully functional,
Right.
you want to uproot them because you feel it's best for them
Right.
without even having a full conversation about what they feel is best for them. If they're able to still make these types of decisions,
Right.
we move them often from the city to the country because it's convenient for us.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if I'm moving someone from New York to Atlanta, per se,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't drive, how are they going to socialize in Atlanta?
Right.
In the suburbs of Atlanta,
Right. Especially,
right? At least in New York City, they could walk to the corner store.
Yeah.
They could still go to church. We can call a ride. We could call a taxi. We have a lot of different options. We have public transportation that runs 24/7. It's often difficult for them to be uprooted, and they tend to become depressed when you uproot them.
Right. And that's something
It was
that
good for you, but it wasn't good for them. The
Right.
move was it made you feel better
Right.
about them being cared for and not living alone.
Yeah, because I think that's something again that we have to think about. It's not just the literal physical space. Yeah, you may have a great physical space for them. They've got access to care. They've got access to, the shelter and they can get to their doctor's appointments, etc. But the socialization is so incredibly important, and particularly for the elderly, because for any person, if they lose a sense of meaningfulness and usefulness and connectedness, right, that's gonna have a social or a mental negative mental impact on them that will eventually lead to their deterioration, the deterioration of their health. So
physically and cognitively.
Right. So we have to think about that. So you have to have a conversation with your siblings, whoever's going to be mad, kind of think about it like that. But whoever's going to be influential in that, have the conversation with your loved one, because even though you may think you know best, it is so important to include them in the process,
in the conversation.
Right. To the point that they're cognitively able to do so. If they're able to have a conversation, you've got to be able to include them in it. You come up with your documentation, and then you get you come up with your plan, and then we talked about the different ways you're going to fund it. Is it long-term health insurance? Is it a fund that your family begins now, because you know that maybe in 10 years y'all got to make a decision what you're going to do with mom and dad, so you start pooling your money together or investing or doing something. But it's all about preparation and planning.
All about preparation,
because even though there are going to be some sudden illnesses that can come up, we do know that at some point our parents, our loved ones, even ourselves are going to need to be taken care of. And it's all about, how do we take care of business? We think about this from a business perspective, and because we're making CEO moves. You have to get your feelings out your finances. You've got to really think about it, and you make those CEO moves. So, what are some final thoughts that you want to share with the audience as they are really having this time to think about how they're going to take care of their loved ones without taking their parents, taking, their finances out. Because they've got to think about their parents or the loved one. They've got to think about themselves, how they're going to mentally prepare for it and physically prepare for it. And then how are they going to pay for it? So what are your final thoughts with helping our viewers to know, well, what you got to do, what you going to do?
Well, there's a lot to do. As we just talked about a few things here tonight. So one is have the conversation, talk about it. Let somebody know that you are in this situation or that you have this level of concern, even about your parents or whomever the person is.
Yeah.
And then reach out for some support.
If team. I said team, get a team.
We talk about circle of influence. That means there have to be people there to influence you.
Right.
So you have to reach out for some support because your circle might not have that information. So you have to go outside of the circle.
Right.
So then you can contact us. You can always come to a Labor of Love Elder Care. You can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. You can find us there. You can follow us on Twitter because as you know, all the legal and health stuff happens on Twitter all day, all night.
Yeah.
So you can find us on Twitter at Aging Answers. You just ask a question. You can ask me any question you want to ask me on the Facebook page. You could DM me. Just ask the question. That is free. You can go to a Labor of Love Elder Care /services. You can actually, for your viewers, you can go to bit.ly / let's see what we did, where I can send you for tonight.
Okay.
Caregiver 101.
Caregiver 101.
101. bit.ly / Caregiver 101.
So you can go there and get additional information, get your questions answered.
You can go there at least get a download, and you can get some information because the truth is you don't know what you don't know. Right. Because we don't know until we're in it.
Right. You don't know what you don't know. And it's good to prepare beforehand. So even if you're not presently in the situation of having to take care of your parents, you don't think you're going to be, just go ahead and go to bit.ly / Caregiver 101 and see what you need to know. Because you may be surprised. I'm more prepared than I thought I was. Or, good Lord, I need to get to working on it. So, but again, Terry, I just want to thank you so much. First of all, thank you for your perseverance as we work through the technical issues. But, we are CEO. Yes. Right? Yes, we are CEOs. So we kept making those CEO moves until we actually made it. So I just thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And so glad we finally had the chance to do this. Because as I mentioned to everybody, we have been planning this since June when we met in New Jersey a few months ago. And so thank you so much for being on here. And thank you so much for being willing to answer questions for our viewers, because this is a tough issue that a lot of us don't want to think about, but it is an important issue that all of us need to think about. So again, thank you so much. And
thank you so much.
You, and I'll be seeing you around.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie. At any time, call on us. We can have a conversation about this. Also, again, as you mentioned earlier about the age method. For me, that means, for you to actively get engaged, because we have to get engaged. We want you to be engaged in this process, and we want everybody to be engaged in this process.
Right.
So again, thank you so much. The last thing I want to say to your viewers is it is Medicare open enrollment season.
Yeah.
So that is a conversation is coming up as of October 15th. That is another conversation for you to have with your loved ones. And if you need some more information on that, again, there'll be some information on our Facebook page about that. At A Labor of Love Elder Care.
A labor of love, elder care.
Elder Care. Yep. Facebook.com/A Labor of Love Elder Care. And you will be able to see some tips on how to navigate that process. That's a whole different system, a whole different process.
Ooh, yeah.
And November is Family Caregiver Awareness Month. So check us out for some additional caregiving tips. And next time I talk to you, I'll have another surprise for you.
All right. Well, awesome. Again, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing with our viewers. And I'll be seeing you around.
Thank you, Dr. Stephanie.
Of course. Of course.
Thank you. And remember to take good care.
All right. I will. I will. Well, thank you, everyone. It has been my pleasure to have you here in the C-Suite. And of course, this episode was brought to you by C-Suite Women's Network, where you can learn to be the CEO of your life. C-Suite Women's Network offers professional and personal leadership development, strategic planning, and organizational and performance excellence strategies. There you will learn excellence through training, coaching, and accountability support to meet your goals. The mission of C-Suite Women's Network is to equip women and a few good men to be the CEOs of their lives, to use their education, experience, and influence to create the lives they desire and deserve. So if you're ready to be a better CEO of your life so you can be a better CEO in your business, go on over to www.discovertheceoin.com. Discover the CEO. I can't even talk. Discovertheceoinu.com. Discovertheceoinu.com to schedule your strategy session. So I am just so grateful that you stuck around to have this conversation in the C-Suite. And as always, you've got to remember that it's all about the C-Suite moves. We want you to feel something. Hopefully you feel a little something you need to do. Most of all, hopefully you've learned something and that you do something with what you've learned. So we want you to make those CEO moves, create your circle of influence, educate and empower yourself for elevation, and operationalize what you learn to optimize your outcome. So remember, whether you are the CEO of a business or report to a CEO, you are the CEO of your life. So feel something, learn something, do something, and make sure that you remember that the power is not in the conversation, but in the CEO moves that you make. So don't talk about it, be about it. Don't wait, though. Wait broke the scales. Now is the best time to do what you know you need to do. I am Dr. Stephanie D. Barnes, and it has been my pleasure to host this episode of Conversations from the C-Suite, the Girlfriend's Guide to Being a CEO. And I want to remind you that your life is the product of your choices. Choose to be the CEO of your life. Until next time, make those CEO moves.